Welcome back once again, everybody, to Nerdly Out Loud, the official channel of nerdly.co.uk, your favourite British home for all your news, reviews, and exclusive interviews, mostly brought by me because I'm super, super awesome. We like to cover everything from the big budget to the low budget to the no budget, with a special keen interest on the movies at the lower end of the scale. That's where our heart lies. It's what we love. It's where you find the gems, and it's where the true movies and true directors, true creators get to flex their muscle. We are going to be getting on in this episode in 2 minutes, which, by the way, is an interview episode. I'm not done an interview episode for what feels like months. Feels like since forever, since the Romford sessions and then Owen Mackin. But don't get it twisted, the interviews will not be going anywhere. They are staying with us, they are staying on the channel. We absolutely love doing that. It is where my heart absolutely wants to be. This one I was super, super excited to do. I could have done it during the Romford sessions, but selfishly, I guess I kept this one for myself. This was a movie that I basically begged the director to submit his movie to the festival because I wanted everybody to see it. But I wasn't going to let those boys jump in on my interview with this guy. This was my interview. So I kind of held off a little bit, didn't tell the boys. Sneaky. But yeah, it's an amazing interview. I'm really happy with what happens here, and I'm really glad we finally got the guy on. But before we do get into that, please do all of those wonderful, wonderful things that help out us YouTube creators and us content creators. Please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and ding that bell. The bell is a notification bell, and it will let you know whenever I drop an episode. It will just come up on your phone. It'll say Nerdly Out Loud or Nerdly UK has dropped a new episode. Get it watched now because it's awesome. They all are. That would be amazing if you did that. We are currently on track for 750 subscribers, which is awesome. I think we're like 16 away. I would love to get there soon. I would love to get there sooner rather than later. And on that, let's just roll straight to it. Let's not waste too much time because it is quite a long interview as well. It's a good hour. So let's get to that now. The interview is with director Gavin Michael Booth. This is a director that last year during lockdown number 3, 2, 3, whichever one it was, I discovered his movie Last Call. I reviewed his movie and I gave it a fantastic review because for me it's a movie that hits home, hits hard, and it stays with you for a couple of days. It really does. You're going to be thinking about it for a little while afterwards as well. It's just one of those ones. A true two-shot one take, which if you don't really know what that means, and I would hope you kind of do at least know what that means, it is what it sounds like. It is a one-take movie, continuous one shot, but it's continuous one take, but it's shot in 2 separate locations. So you've got 2 different crews, 2 shots, 1 full take. And they did it from across the city, and it's an unbelievable feat. Even just a one take is an unbelievable feat, but you are getting 2 separate crews to do a one take at exactly the same time, which to me, that is a technical mastery of your craft to have done that. And that's why one of those reasons, like, I think one takes is a little bit of a gimmick. 1917 kind of started to run that into the ground for me. And when this came around, I was kind of like, really? I was a little bit dubious going in. But the storyline, the plot, the characters, the actors, everything won me over with this movie. Just everything won me over. I love this film to the point where when Romford Film Festival was coming around, I begged Gavin, just enter it, please submit the movie, and he did, and everybody seemed to love it there as well, so that is awesome. But you know what, let's not waste any more time, let's just jump into the interview, which is already in progress. Mr. Gavin Michael Booth, his movie is Last Call. You can check it out wherever it is, please do.
Hello?
Hello?
Oh, sorry, sir, we're closed.
Okay, but you're working tonight?
Yeah, but I actually don't usually answer the phones.
Where did I call?
Gateway Career Center?
I've been staring at that number for a long time. I got off one of those posters. One of those, you're not alone. If you need help, call this number.
I'm sorry, sir, what do you need help with?
If anything happened to my boys, I would...
Drink a lot, call a helpline.
Yeah, I probably would. Scott, maybe we can talk about something else, like your daughter and maybe where she's
You never
going.
think about what happens when you die?
No, I don't really, like to think about that.
I do. Even I'm starting to believe it.
Believe what?
I'm a monster.
Accidents happen, you know?
No. Don't say that.
But
No,
it's
no,
true.
You don't get to say that to me.
Just trying to help
Accidents
people.
happen. You know, it happens for a reason. God works in mysterious ways.
Scott, please answer me, okay? Think about Emily, okay? She doesn't want you to go. Scott, please don't go.
I am joined by director Gavin Michael Booth, who I've been dying to speak to because last year I caught his movie Last Call, a 2-shot, 1-take movie that is just technically brilliant, and the story itself is absolutely creative and poignant, and this guy showed a clear mastery of what he does. So I've been trying to get him on for a little while, and it's my own fault, Gavin, that I've let it slip by. I do fully hold my hands up there. I am also part of the Romford Film Festival, as many people who watch and listen will know. I begged Gavin to give us his film this year. I absolutely begged him because I was like, people need to see this in Romford. People need to see this in the UK as well, and make sure everybody's checking this film out. How are you tonight, Gavin?
Well, it's afternoon here, but doing wonderful. It's a wonderful day in the safety of my hometown in Canada, so I can't nothing to complain about.
Absolutely nothing. And Canada is, from what I hear, a lovely, lovely place.
It's a big place, so there are definitely many wonderful pockets of lovely all across. Yeah.
I'm just going to say it outright. I feel like we are quite far removed from the fest now because we had the fest a couple of months back.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I guess I couldn't really hang my hat on any real project because you have to stay, what do you call it? You got to be in the middle. You can't favor anything.
Impartial. Yeah.
Impartial. That's the word I couldn't think of. It's a good word as well. But no, you kind of have to stay that way during the festival and everything like that. But I'm going to say it now because I've got you on the chat. Last Call was easily my favorite piece of work that we showed this year. We showed about 200 shorts and features, a lot of great stuff this year. And this is why I chased you down for it, because I was kind of like, this is easily going to be the best thing we show. Personally, I genuinely think it was. I think you've created something beautiful here, man.
Thank you. I mean that means a lot. It's always it's hard for me to ingest praise, but I appreciate it. Listen, the fact that we finished this movie, given like the experimental sort of risk that we took with it, is one thing. The fact that people, we were gobsmacked. I say we, like David, who co-stars in the movie with my wife Sarah. So David, Sarah, and I, David and I wrote it together, produced it together. We had our first like solid screening in LA, actually at the famous like Man's Chinese Theater at a festival.
Nice.
And I've never sat with an audience and watched one of my films like that. That sounds nerve-wracking and like terrible. So I'm all, you can find me at the bar, just getting progressively drunker until it's like the Q&A time. And then my Q&A skills are great because I'm half in the bag. But with Last Call, we snuck in. I snuck in. There was an entrance at the back of the theater, and I walked in and just saw just pin drop silence. I could hear people like sniffling and sobbing, and it was like 45 minutes into the movie. I was like, oh, and I just went back out, went to the bar, and then they had us come in for the Q&A, and we had this incredible like 4 or 5 minute standing ovation, and then we got a second standing ovation after the Q&A, and we were there were people like openly weeping in their seats at the end of the movie, and we're like, did we make a good movie? Like you really honestly, you can feel that you've made a good movie, and like we hit all the goals we wanted to do with this project. I think David and Sarah knock it out of the park with their performances, because this movie, without any edits, is 100% based on their performances. But the honest truth is, like, it's not up to you to say whether something's good or not. It has to go out into the world, and then you have to, get ready to be potentially beaten up by all of the all the feedback that's going to come in, which is which is a skill set of its own to learn how to handle all so much
I
negative
bet.
criticism. But it's funny to us. We laugh it off.
Done a wonderful job, but we're going to get a little bit more into that in a second. But first of all, I want to get to know a little bit more about Gavin himself and how you actually got yourself into the industry,
Mm.
what made you want to be part of the filmmaking industry, and is there any one project or movie that you saw as a kid and you were like, that's what I'm doing?
Yes, but only sort of in hindsight, because I'm a kid. I'm in my early 40s, so I'm a child of Spielberg and Lucas. Like all the
Nice,
Star
nice.
Wars, Indiana Jones, E.T. All of those movies are what sort of shaped my love for movies as a kid. But the first movie I ever saw was in a cinema was E.T., and it broke my heart. Like the whole drive home, my dad had to kept assuring me that like ET's going home, it's the right thing for him, like Elliot will be okay. But my dad is a photographer, like a hobbyist photographer, had a small business for it, and we had a dark room in the basement growing up. We had an 8mm film camera, so I had access to making stop motion videos, like one little
Oh,
thumb click at
nice.
a time. So my Lego figures, my Star Wars figures became like, it was just something fun that I did, and I wanted to tell stories. But when you're whatever 8 years, 9 years old, you're not thinking, oh, I'm going to grow up and be a filmmaker.
No.
But by the time I was in like the 8th grade, around like age 12 or 13, I was really like, oh, okay, I'm obsessed. I had a newspaper delivery route. I bought a camcorder, and then every weekend spent it with my neighbors and my younger brother and my friends, just like running around, mostly making parody films, Indiana Jones and the Lost Remote Control, or Friday the 13th Part 26, and which I think they're actually getting close to that one
Yeah, they can't be
now.
far off.
Yeah, they're all making prequels to my movie. But yeah, and they were horrific, but there was still a general sense of like, oh, okay, there's a wide shot going to a close up. I'm mimicking what I know from movies. And then when I hit high school, I fell in love with it. But it was always the writing that I loved the most. I was always writing short stories in elementary school and high school, and the only way to sort of like take these little scripts I was writing and get them made was to do it myself, because there wasn't an internet at that time. Like there was no social media, there's no Facebook where you could say, hey, I live in this city, who wants to come make a movie, who else makes movies or has movie gear. There wasn't a community like that, so everything was just sort of self-taught. And I got really lucky that my high school had a really wonderful teacher, Keith Herrick, and they had just bought a whole bunch of, like, at the time, state-of-the-art video gear and cameras and things that I got to play around. And then I just lived and breathed in that editing room. Like, started working out deals with the custodial staff that I could stay after hours, and stay till midnight when they left every day, so that I could edit and like get all these projects done. And I started making projects for. We'd have an English class. It's like, you could write a 1,000-word essay, or you can make a 4-minute video. I was like, 4-minute video, 4-minute video, I'm
Definitely.
in. um and I'd always get like 100% on these projects. So I was like, okay, maybe there's something here. And that sort of like paved the way for me to be like, I think I want to go to film school, which I didn't, because I a combination of not getting accepted to the ones I wanted to go, or not being able to afford the other ones that I could have gone to. And just went my own path of starting my own business, doing local TV commercials, and all the really bad, like, late night ones you see, like, come on in, me and my family have owned this business for 50 years, get a deal, 2 for 1 on steaks, or whatever they're selling. Butcher shop, that's a specific butcher shop I'm referencing in my hometown. uh, but it was such fun. I was earning money, not a lot of money, but I was paying my bills to, like, get to do what I love, and just and learning to work with clients and adjust scripts to other people's wills. Like, all of it is very valuable, like grassroots stuff I didn't realize would influence or help me along in the business side of filmmaking.
And you started off, as I see in your filmographies, obviously you're doing trailers, adverts, and everything like that. You've done quite a few shorts, quite a few
Mhm.
music videos as well, which is cool. And then obviously you've bounced into features now. Is there a massive difference between producing like a music video to going into a full feature, or is it just kind of like you're just applying what you've learned there on a bigger scale? Or
It's all the same mechanics. I mean, music videos are glorious because you don't have to worry about recording sound. So the production days go much faster because you're not always trying to make sure the sound's captured. You don't have to worry about planes flying overhead or trains passing by or whatever it is. But
Seagulls in the background.
yeah, most of us don't have the luxury of a sound stage, right? So we gotta have to work with what we have. But I think the biggest thing is just the endurance. You know, you do a music video, it's general on today's budgets, generally one day, maybe you've got a day and a half or 2 days at the most. And that's exhausting. So, you know, you have to amplify that by another average of 12 to 21, 22 days on like an indie feature. It's kind of like anything. It's like the marathon version of whatever you do. And if you could run, you know, 10 miles tomorrow, and then somebody said, well, today you got to run a marathon, you got to run all 40 kilometers, like you'd be like, I can't, you know.
Yeah.
So I remember directing my first feature and my mom coming to set and bringing me new shoes that had like these thick foam insoles in them because my feet hurt so bad because I'm a lazy bastard that never has to stand for like try standing all day if you're used to sitting at a desk. It's a sad state of my my physical health. But yeah, I think the endurance factor you can't teach. But I advise I did it backwards. I made a feature film before I ever made a short, before I ever made a music video, and got on set on day one and thought, what have I done? I had a co-director on that film, and he and I were at least in the same boat, so we were able to like bounce things off of each other. But man, oh man, it was a bad choice, because the whole point of shorts and music videos is to like build your skills in these much more contained, limited scenarios, and get used and work out all your kinks before you go and try to do the marathon version of it.
Yeah. So getting into Last Call, because I really do want to talk about this movie with you and the ins and outs of it. Why don't you, because I'm terrible at doing the pitch, why don't you let the listeners, the viewers, know in your words what Last Call is about?
Last Call is a man at the end of his rope attempting to dial a suicide hotline. And because he's been drinking all night and continuing to drink alcohol, he has misdialed by one digit. And on the other end of the phone, a woman, Beth, who is a night janitor at a college, answers the phone, thinking it's her son calling her. And when she realizes what Scott is up to and why he's calling and what this misdial is, decides to try to do the right thing and stay on the phone with him and change the course of the night. So it is an incredibly simple premise. 2 actors, 1 phone conversation. The style we chose to tell the movie in is not unlike this podcast. It's split. Wait, let me get the right.
I was going to say,
it's split screen. Yeah,
we've almost got it. You know, the picture in the back is almost perfect.
yeah. Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, we're almost lined up with it. The movie is presented in split screen, so you're watching both sides of the story unfold at the same time, and we did it in a single take. So you're when we yelled action, when we yelled cuts, that was the entire movie. We had 2 camera crews in 2 different parts of the city. In this city, Windsor, Ontario, where I'm sitting right now, I can actually see Scott's apartment out of this window. It's kind of fun. And yeah, so we had two crews running at the same time, shooting in a single take, and the actors are actually on a real live telephone call. So it's sort of like a stage play with no scene breaks, no intermission, and camera crews following them to capture it all in one go.
And for anyone watching or listening who thinks to themselves, you know what, that doesn't sound too hard to do. I've seen one takes before. Like we've all seen one take movies, one take TV shows and whatnot. I think the one that normally sticks in my head is episode 6 of The Haunting of Hill House. That first 25 minutes is just absolutely incredible. But what Gavin is actually doing here, what he's actually doing is creating 2 movies at exactly the same time, which is nuts. So help me understand, Gavin. Why do it this way? Why go for the 2-shot one take?
I've been obsessed with single take stuff for a while. Yeah, most of the movies that you watch aren't really a true take. They're just being shot in
Yes.
real time. They're hiding cuts. And that's not to throw any shade at them, because it's so, like, you couldn't have made 1917 in a true single take. But the element of real time and that ticking clock and living through every moment of tension,
Yeah.
even when you see it in one scene, like if you remember, if you've seen Funny Games, it doesn't matter if it's the
Yo.
original or the American
Yeah.
remake, the scene where the gun goes off and she has to like duct tape hop across the room and the cameras just fall, and you're like, just tell us what happened. Like
Yep.
those moments are so brilliant. It adds a lot of tension. So we thought for this movie, um, if we had cross cut this movie and shot it separately, I I can't even say the script would be a good movie. We had people that read this script and they're like, this is boring. Don't make this movie. Like we had that a lot. And I was like, okay, I can see that, but you're not seeing the way that we're gonna put it on. Like
Yeah.
the viewer experience is meant to be that you're like bird's eye view. You can see every moment of what's happening and the emotion on both sides of their faces. So the audience is always a step ahead a little bit of what's happening on screen. And that just adds to the anxiety. But it was also about bringing the humanity to it. We thought if it's live in a single take, these are two actors that you aren't household names yet, but you get a sense of like you're watching something real. It feels much more grounded. And I think it's about putting people in the driver's seat of what would they do if they were on this phone call, how would they react, and never giving the audience a sense of relief with a fade out or a scene change. Just sort of like the idea was to pull the audience in and then just captivate them and hold that tension for the whole movie, not knowing what the outcome would be. David and I, when we were writing it, very much wanted to make it as real as humanly possible, and not sort of some Hollywood stakes to keep the movie interesting, which we almost did. The original plot was a man calls a suicide hotline, no misdial, and then it's this real time thing. But we had some friends that work in crisis counseling, and they're like, most calls are 20 minutes and then they're done. We either call the authorities or EMS to
Yeah.
go check on you, or you've agreed to be safe and are off the phone. And we had to start thinking like, well, what if there's a snowstorm that night and there's no way that the police can get, and we're like, oh, this is not the movie we want to make anymore, to the point that we were like, I guess we can't make this movie. That was a fun idea. But then it hit us of like, oh, what if it's a stranger? What if it's a random misdial? And then it just kicked off, and we're like, okay, this makes a lot more sense, because it also puts the audience in the perspective of Beth, where they are that random person. Like, if you answered that call, how would you navigate speaking to somebody like on the edge?
I think for me as well, I quite liked the one take nature from the start of the movie. I like the way the sound dips in and out of each other's
Mm.
scenes, to give you like little nuggets of what's going on with these people. But it's the moment Beth picks up the phone to Scott, and you're right, the fact that she is like a complete stranger, the fact that she's not equipped to deal with this kind of thing, the fact that she's really got her own stuff going on with her son and everything like that, and she's waiting for that phone call to come through. But she snaps in the moment when she receives that phone call, and almost like the maternal instinct completely kicks in. Like, I need to try and help protect this guy. I need to try and talk this guy out of what he's doing. That's where the movie lives. The movie absolutely lives. Both performances are wonderful, but the movie for me lived with the character of Beth. And if you didn't get her character right, I feel like it would have fell off a little bit. What was she? What was she? It's your wife. It's Sarah Booth. What was Sarah drawing from with this? And was this a character that you guys built together, or was it just kind of all three of you sitting together and coming up with it, or was a lot of this just Sarah in the moment?
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. So David and I wrote this. Our original intention were two different actors in the Beth role, both of them being quote unquote names, household names.
Yeah.
And But due to schedules and other reasons that their other TV and film projects were happening, weren't able to join us. So Sarah Booth was our backup call, and not that we didn't think that Sarah Booth could do it. Sarah and I have produced a few movies together and worked together, and I'm a huge fan of her acting. I saw her do a stage play called Blackbird, which is a one-act play, very dark subject matter, 2 people in a room, no intermission, no anything, and that it's interesting. Like when she acts in my projects, I'm like, yeah, she's a good actress, but I can't. I need that distance. Whereas I watch her in someone else's film, and I'm like, oh, amazing. So watching the stage play is like, wow, like she has beyond the acting chops I ever realized. So we were happy to have her involved. But David and I, no, we wrote the character the way we wanted to, and she would. We would do a couple read throughs with partial versions of the script, and we would do rehearsals over the phone. I was here in Canada prepping Last Call. Sarah was in Montreal filming a Dennis Leary sitcom, and David was in LA working on projects and where he lived. So all our rehearsals were over the telephone call, which was great because you got a real sense of like just what the conversation felt like without seeing the visuals.
That's
And
cool.
so Sarah would have input and ideas there. She's a wonderful collaborator. But while we were shooting the movie, the way we did it is we could only afford 10 days to rehearse the movie and then 4 days to actually shoot it. So we had to get it right in those 4 days. And on day 5 or so, Sarah started coming to us saying like, I really don't believe this element of the story, this part of it, like it's just not working for me. I don't believe my character would do that. It's not honest. And we were like, okay, well, it's fine. And then like day 7, she's like, I have to strongly object again. And then day 10 of rehearsal, she's like, okay, this doesn't work, and you guys need to like consider it before you shoot this movie tomorrow, because there's no editing, there's no regular post-production where you can massage things. There's no coming back to film later. And she was right. And this element of the story, David and I sat down after our last day of rehearsal and pulled an all-nighter and rewrote 30 something pages of the script. Now the script is only 60 pages long on paper. We rewrote half the scripts to change what was, and what that change was originally it was Scott trying to keep her on the telephone and keep her engaged. And Sarah's like, I would hang up and go back to cleaning. I have a job. My son's missing. I don't care about this. I'm sorry. I don't care about this dude. He's kind of a narcissist and an asshole. I just don't care. And she, to her credit, really fought for us to consider changing it. And like the minute that we changed it and reworked it out. But what that meant was our first day of filming was 30 new pages of script, some new blocking that both camera teams had to learn, and then like, okay, and go. But I mean, if it changed it to be really make Beth the protagonist, so that everything is through her decision making, her care for this stranger, the kindness of strangers, and it shifted the movie. Still essentially the same script, but just this key character decision making. So yeah, Sarah is instrumental in this film's success beyond just her performance in it.
So quickly on that, as the co-writer and the director of this, how annoying was that for you?
No, honestly, not at all. Sarah and I, we generally don't fight in our personal life anyways, but we'll, like any couple, we'll bicker and have little things that annoy each other. But on set, it's always knowing that the other person's saying something that she's my harshest critic when she reads scripts, looks at rough edits or anything, and it's like, and then I think about it for 2 minutes and go like, oh, she's completely right. Or like, there's some validity there. Like if you just know that your collaborators, even if you're married to them, are always striving for like the best creative outcome, and it's not a battle of ego or anything else, it's pretty easy to navigate. Now we creatively, we collaborate very well together. Like I hope Sarah and I get to keep making films together. Honestly, she's so busy and all these amazing TV and film projects right now for like real studios. I don't know if I'll be able to afford her for much longer. Yeah. I'm waiting for the day where our agent calls and says, yeah, she's busy. She can't do this. Yeah.
Well, maybe on Transformers 9, eh?
Exactly. Well, you can play a Transformer. Yeah.
So as the director, and it's a two-shot thing, you can't be in both places at the same time. So I think I might know the answer to this based on the film I watched. Where were you? Where were you when all this was? Were you sort of in a midway point, or were you at a specific location when filming?
My plan was to play an extra in the bar on Scott's side of the story. Yeah, again, the correct way to do this with Hollywood money would be to have amazingly powerful like transmitters that can transmit the image, and I would be sitting in a video village and I'd be watching both sides of it. Unfortunately, on our scrappy little tiny, micro budget that is less than the average, like car, we we couldn't do that. So the goal was I was going to just play an extra and then just, cross my fingers and hold my breath and maybe pop an Ambien and sleep and wait until like it was over. Because what we would do is we would take both sides of the film, edit them together very roughly between takes, watch the movie, and sort of like the same way you would if you're filming a 15-second take, you yell cut and then you discuss with the crew, okay, focus was off, performance wise change this was exactly that, just for this entire duration. But what happened was I ended up camera operating on Scott's side of the film.
Nice.
So my cinematographer Seth, who did, him and my gaffer Doug Cunningham did such a great job lighting the film and getting it all prepped. And then I was a ringer. I came in to camera operate on Scott David's side of the story. So I was actually in the thick of it, and most of the mistake takes are on me for blowing focus or bumping into a wall and wrecking the shot.
So we're gonna jump into that in a second, because that kind of leads into obviously the performance of David, which again I gushed about Sarah's before, but David's performance is unreal, and I kind of want to dive into that in a second. But first of all, obviously you've got like 3, 4, 5 days to get this right. You've only got a certain amount of takes, I'm guessing, to get it right. How many takes did it take before you got the perfect one?
Honestly, the first take we got, we managed, we had in the schedule, we had 8 times. We were going to run it twice a night for 4 nights, and then the idea would be we pick one of those 8 to live with as the movie. We got 5 full takes.
Nice.
And then a small handful of misstarts where we get, luckily every time there was a mistake, which was usually technical, was always 3 to 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes into the movie. So it wasn't like getting to the 70-minute mark and then tripping down the stairs or something. So there are 4 full versions of the movie that exist.
Nice.
But I keep meaning to go back and watch, because I keep thinking like, maybe one of them's better, but I don't think so.
Maybe I could just put a fake edit in somewhere and get both.
Yeah, I mean,
no, you can't do that.
Honestly, if it was only the one side, maybe we could have found a way to hide and edit. But you would, with this, you'd actually have to find the exact point that works on both sides of the story, because the minute that say Scott starts saying his lines at a different pace, well,
yes.
if Beth isn't connected on that exact phone call, it's going to be off. And in the early days of pre-planning, like that was like, do we shoot one side of it and then the other actor has to match exactly what, we explored all options of how to shoot the movie, because obviously shooting both single takes at the same time just doubles the risk of something going horribly wrong and wrecking the shoot.
And you'd be more frustrated if it was happening on the other side. So you're sitting there going, come on, we were pulling our weight here.
I can't speak for Seth, but I'll imagine a world in his head where he's like, I can't be the one that messes up if the director's holding a camera over on that side.
So back to the fact that you're running and gunning on the camera in the David side of things, Scott's side of things. His performance it's mesmerizing. It really is. There's parts in this movie where you don't know sort of who you should be watching. And what I wondered, and I don't know if you maybe just have to completely disconnect yourself from the whole thing, but there are certain parts of this movie when the wheels are really falling off for this character. Like they've already kind of fallen off, but there's certain parts where they're just way down the road. What was it like for you as a director, as a human being, as the man behind the camera? What was it like for you watching David's performance?
It's interesting because on the take that we used, there are actually two big mistakes that weren't supposed to happen. And so David, not pulling himself fully out of character, but had to like put his producer brain on. There's a bit where he tries to dial Beth and the phone call just didn't actually go through. The practical phone call didn't go through. But he smartly was sitting sort of like this. And I was always, and he puts his hand like he's scratching his beard so we can't see his mouth. And he's talking to me and he's like, what do I do? Are we cutting? And I'm yelling from behind the camera, like, no, redial. And then he goes, and he picks up the phone and tries again. Like, so saves our take that we could have botched, But that there's a moment. I mean, I love David's performance in this film. It's interesting because David is like, if you meet David in person, he's the most like glowing, high energy, like comedian, just a funny dude, always on, always a joy to be around. And a lot of his background is comedy. He's in the most famous Doritos commercial ever that won the Super Bowl contest, and it's highly comedic and all these roles in comedy shows and wonderful comedic actor. But part of him wanting to make Last Call was to make a project for himself to act in where people could see this other side of him that he hasn't really been able to capture professionally from the industry side. He's done theater but people don't look at David and go, oh, serious actor guy, and that was one of his goals. And that's what's important about indie film is like actors now have the ability to create their own work, to write their own projects, produce their own projects, more so than ever in the history of cinema. But there's a moment for me that like I get chills thinking about it right now, and I love it in the finished movie, especially with the music behind it. But it's when I won't spoil anything, but it's the moment where he, several times in the movie, he calls to try to talk to his daughter and gets her answering machine. But at this particular moment, he decides to leave a voice message. And when he does that, it's sort of like really connects the audience to like, oh, this might not be going in a direction that I like.
Yeah.
But he is so, I'm getting goosebumps. He is so fucking good in that moment that I got goosebumps shooting it. I like had tears welling up in my eyes behind the camera, even though I'm like, a lot of it, I'm like, to be honest, like watching, like being there, I'm so concentrating on like, I've got to change the focus every 30 seconds. I've got to change the iris. Okay, now I've got to try to stand up from this kneeling position and not shake the camera. Like a lot of it is just mental gymnastics that like the performance was half lost on me being there until I could review it afterwards. But that moment stands out for sure. And still to this day, it's like, it's my favorite Scott moment in the entire film. It just really, it hurts to watch. He's so good.
Yeah. There's a couple of moments like that, and that one does sting a lot. And I did kind of, when I alluded before as to what side of the shot I thought you were going to be on, I genuinely thought it would be that one, because I mean, how do you not be?
Well, Seth had already been doing all of the rehearsals on Beth's side of the story. Sarah did have a preference that I be as far away from her as possible when the camera's actually rolling for this, because I can be an annoying director where I'm not afraid to shout things out from behind the camera to like try to like manipulate a take as it's rolling, and that works very well in traditional films when you're like, you just you as a director, your brain should always be looking to, you'd be like, do this, look away. Like you want to shout something out to like, be more angry, so you don't have to do it again. But yeah, he had already done all the rehearsals, so it would make zero sense for me to be on that side. And I had spent a lot of time, I spent time rehearsing on both sides, but the choreography of movement on Scott's side of the story was simpler. So for a simpler camera operator, it made sense.
But how did that like? So, did you have any idea what was going on the other side, or was it just they have to do their thing, and you just have to trust that it's working.
It's literally
That must be crazy as the director as well, just sort of like having to let them be in their bag and do their thing.
what is it, Luke? You turned off your targeting. Use the force, Luke. Trust. I'm working with my blast shield down. I gotta just trust. It was. I mean, we always knew that if they're on a live phone call, so if David's still acting, we know it's going well. Or else, because Sarah would have said to, like, that's how we would know. Sarah would be like, Seth slipped down the stairs of the camera. We have to restart, And that was sort of the rule. Like, even if you flub a line, anything, just keep going until don't decide, oh, I was out of focus slightly. We have to restart. We'll address all of that afterwards. But it was yeah, it was definitely nerve wracking, but it's kind of like directing a play. The director sits in the audience and just goes,
Yes.
whatever happens, happens. But again, it's sort of like rolling any take. You roll the whole take. This just happened to be a very long take, and then you review it afterwards and make sure that everything's there. But yeah, there was this nail biting process of like calling afterwards, like, did you get it? And you'd be like, well, I don't know. And I'd be like, but I just worked so hard. I don't know if I could do it again. This camera's heavy. I'm out of shape. And we would go back and then ingest all the footage into a computer and then edit it and then watch it. And then the longer you watch it, you're like, please just keep working. And the take that we used for the movie was our second last night of filming. So the third night. So we knew we had one that would work. We strived to try to get one that would be slightly better. But I don't know. We all felt it that night. We watched it. We're like, that's the movie. It's there. Yeah.
In terms of that, and I know I don't know if you can really speak for David, and both performances are very grueling and very sort of emotionally draining and whatnot. But surely he must have just been knackered after this.
Yeah, I mean, it was there's some good behind the scenes footage somewhere of basically both he and I collapsing on the ground afterwards. He's finished the emotional performance, and I need to get this camera off my shoulders. And like, I again did no training or preparation for holding this 50 or 60-pound camera rig on my shoulder. And that thing even though we had the back brace stuff, like, it strains your back, it strains your arms, it strains your legs to try to hold in these weird squat positions for minutes at a time. It was like taking a CrossFit class while also trying to like camera operate. But yeah, David was pretty good. His method, he would isolate himself for a few hours before we shot. Music is a big part of David's, and I can answer a lot of this because I know it from talking to him, and I know from all the Q&As we've done together, and just would really try to isolate himself and just prep for that. And letting it go at the end of the takes too wasn't easy for him. It wasn't just like all right, we're done, let's go eat pizza and have a beer. And
I think that's one of the reasons I want to kind of to slip that question in, because I've spoken to people before who've done these hugely emotional scenes, and it's been like an extended scene where it's just been emotion after emotion, and it drains you. And it's like, you know what, you just have to let me go to my corner, and he's just going, relieve myself of all this, just go and stand over there by myself, leave me alone. This is 75 to 80 minutes of just, he takes a battering. So I just kind of wondered how how it would affect his sort of process and mentality.
For me, it's like leading up to a shoot, like I deal with my own nerves with humor and sarcasm. That's my whole life. And so I'm just cracking one-liners and things, and like, so I have to just try to be away from the actors as much as possible, because they both have their ways of trying to like prep and rehearse. And sometimes like you hear about actors like, oh, I need my own trailer on set and all this stuff. You're like, no, honestly, sometimes they just need a quiet space that no one else is in to get ready for things.
Definitely. So no spoilers, because obviously I want people to check this film out, and I do want people to check out. Please do. It's an important piece. It's got a lot to say, and it needs to be seen. Was there ever a different ending? Obviously, no spoilers, because I mean, but did it ever go any other way? Or
well, without spoilers, the end is debatable.
It is. It is.
No, we always kind of knew where it would go. I will say this: there were, and we'll talk when we stop recording too. I'll tell you, but there were things that we had in there that we removed that might have signaled a different direction, but we decided to emotionally affect the audience in a different way. Yeah.
Ambiguity is key, and the way you hold that final shot on his side of things. Oh, you bastard! You know,
there's a couple again. I can't say anything without spoilers. I'll tell
yeah.
you. I'll tell you off recording, but there's some interesting questions that came up during Q&As, like, so the way that it holds at the end, that means this, right? And I'm just sitting up there being like, why is everyone smarter than us? Why didn't we write it to mean that? That's so much smarter. And then you'll catch us at the next Q&A being like, well, at the end, what we meant to do.
So was there ever was there ever any kind of trepidation for you guys when releasing this movie? Because this is, it's a subject that right now is very prevalent in society. It's something everybody's talking about. It's something, you know, a lot of people suffer with and things like that. Was there ever any worry to release it, or was it just we've made a solid piece of work here and it's important?
David, from day one, when we were starting to write it, said, you know, I think this film, there's probably potential in the release and marketing of the film to partner with mental health organizations, suicide prevention groups. Maybe there's a way to cross promote and do some screenings. And I was highly uncomfortable with that. I thought, listen, we're filmmakers. We're not psychologists. We're not experts on mental health. Of course, we're going to try to do our best to like do it justice and tell the story honestly. And once the film was done, and you know, early feedback from friends and stuff was like, no, it's told beautifully. It's not, there's nothing like inappropriate in it. And I thought, okay, we could approach these groups, but someone that Sarah knew she's a therapist and also works as like a crisis counselor for Warner Brothers and Netflix, I believe, where it's her job when they do traumatic scenes that they're shooting, she can be there on set and be there if anything is triggering for the actors. If it's you know, a death in the family scene, a rape scene, like something traumatic with war, like whatever it is, she can be there to talk to them. And she reviewed the movie and gave us sort of like a glowing letter of support saying this movie does this. And we're like, okay, a mental health professional has now spoken. And then it's like, okay, we should try to do that. We were able to raise money for the Canadian Mental Health Association when we did our world premiere.
Nice.
So we kind of knew going, and we actually have plans, how to say this politely. They didn't work out the way they were supposed to with one of our releasing partners. So we've held off on these plans, but these plans will come to fruition hopefully later this year, early next year, where we're going to do a series of screenings and things with a mental health organization. And it's a way for us to get the movie in front of audiences that wouldn't have heard of it otherwise, but it's also a way to spark discussion about mental health and at the same time raise some money for these organizations through the ticket sales. And we're super excited about that. David's always been a champion of making sure this film could, if it made sense, do good for the community as well. So it was also, honestly, like upon release, again, you never know what people are going to think about it until you show it to an audience. But you know, most of our festival audiences, I've had people approach me in the lobby afterwards. All of us have, Sarah, David, and I, and tell us deep, dark secrets of their past and their own mental health struggles. And that was very uncomfortable for me at first. But then I realized they're looking at us as like, oh, these people understand because they made this movie and they feel comfortable. And, you know, most of us in life really are just looking for somebody to like talk to, be it, and maybe there's part of that of like, it's even though they just saw me do a Q&A, I'm a stranger. And sometimes it's easier to talk to strangers. I just made a movie about this. I should understand how easy it is for people. But you know, at first that made me really uncomfortable, but I've learned to sort of embrace that. And then I've had some of the most, you know, insanely like intimate friendships built almost instantly in these lobbies of film festivals, and that's actually a really wonderful thing. I mean, what could be better on any given day than to make new friends and just, you know, learn about other human beings, you know, versus all the all the news cycle and BS we have to read in social media all day long of
Exactly.
people just hating on each other.
Exactly. It's one of the reasons that I shouted out to you to try and get this over at Romford, because genuinely it was just a case of people need to see this. People need to be talking about stuff like this.
Which we appreciate, and that's the real thing with indie film. It's just, though, it's, you know, look, you hope for a big splash. We had some sort of like close opportunities, like the big entities of film distribution for this film. But the real truth is, just any indie film that's I do believe great films will find their voice and find their
Yes.
audience. It's a lot of cutting through the BS that comes with the business side of film, making sure you partner with people that really believe in the film. Hasn't been our experience, but we, you know, there's a long game to it. It's about finding, you know, nobody in indie film generally is like, oh, I want to be a director and a social media wizard and an expert on marketing and branding. But the truth is, like, it's not Field of Dreams. You can't build that baseball diamond and hope that an audience shows up. Like, you've got to go out every podcast, like yourself, every review, every platform, every opportunity to just one-on-one tell people that I meet about the film and encourage them to watch it. Like that's all just, it's you know, what's the you know, a rolling stone gathers no moss. It won't just sit collecting dust on a shelf. There's always forward momentum if you keep finding ways to promote the film.
Tell you what, love that Field of Dreams reference.
You know, it's funny. I've been using that reference. If well, one, people misquote that all the time. That if you build it, they will come. When the quote is, if you build it, he will come.
Mm-hmm.
I've been using that for 30 years, and I only just saw Field of Dreams for the first time. I think it was, to be honest, I think it was either my flight coming to Canada to film Last Call or going home from filming Last Call that I watched it on an airplane finally. It was just one of those movies that I just, you know, knew everything about, but had never actually seen the movie.
I've got a few like that.
I'm watching. I'm halfway through Dances with Wolves right now. That's my next one. So something about Kevin Costner, great Kevin Costner movies. I saw all the bad ones. Saw Waterworld 13 times.
Oh no, come on. I'm not having that. Waterworld, there is nothing wrong with that movie.
Well, listen, Sarah Booth, the star of Last Call, also did a live action Waterworld show at Universal Studios in Hollywood for 3 years in a row. And it is the best stunt show I have ever seen. It is. They built the entire floating atoll. They've got the plane that flies into the set. She's got a zip line and drop kick people and jump off of building structures that are crumbling below her. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Damn. So apart from people coming up to you and giving you their deepest, darkest secrets after seeing this movie, what would you say is the best thing you've kind of heard about this film? Because I imagine that once you've filmed it, and the editing process must be super easy. It's just putting two sides of the film together. I'm assuming it's not that easy, but you know, like once it comes together and you realize actually this has worked, it's worked better than I hoped. It looks amazing. It feels amazing. What's the best thing that you've kind of had someone come up to you and say about Last Call, or the worst, whichever one you want?
Oh, I'm getting chills again. It was the Sarah and I were told by an audience member. I couldn't tell you which screening it was at, but and I'll paraphrase. But I missed a phone call one night, and it was my brother. And the next day, he had taken his own life that night. And I feel like listening to what Scott had to say on the phone helps me understand the pain of what he was going through, and has really brought some like a cathartic closure to something very, very personal in my life. And that just broke me. That's the most stunning thing, that like to make a movie that people enjoy. Amazing. To make a movie that can affect people, and I've been able to see actually truly sort of shell shocked sitting in their seat after the theater. It's I didn't know I had it in me. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's been, I like making movies. I think I'm decent at it, but it's brought a lot of confidence, but it's also brought a lot of confidence to keep making all the bold little weird experimental movies that I want to make. I like we talked at the beginning, I have a heart for making a Star Wars movie one day. It would be the dream. But my heart is truly rooted in indie cinema of I'm in the middle of this weird sci-fi band movie right now, and it's like I can't find anything else like it. It's just a movie that I don't think anyone else would ever make. And not to say that my ideas are so original. It's just like it's just this weird little thing that only speaks to me as a filmmaker. And it's the last call, if nothing else, has taught me to just cut out all of the naysayers, cut out all the people that say, well, this script is good, but they got to fall in love by page 10 and this has to happen, and to just ignore all of that noise and make the weird little films that I want. And I've been doing that with short films too. And like, sometimes they fail and sometimes they work like Last Call. But like, I think the minute you try to be disingenuous in storytelling, listen, there are tons of movies you can make. Again, all the movies of the week, all of these things that are content, and people like content, and people need just basic entertainment. They're not the films that I want to make. I want to try to do something original and challenge myself with each one that I make. And like the response to Last Call has sort of taught me to, like, we had a million naysayers say, don't try to shoot in a single take. You'll never get both at the same time. How are you going to have them act over the phone? How are you going to record sound for that? You can't do it. It's too much to ask of your actors. And we did it anyways. And
Awesome.
David, everybody who worked on the movie, but particularly David, Sarah, and I are incredibly proud of the movie, and for all the money in the world, wouldn't have made it a different way.
No. I mean, even when I first sat down to watch it, I genuinely thought that's the way you had made it. As in, like, you'd shot one side first, then you'd shot the other side, or the phone call wasn't actually happening at that time. And it was only when I started like reaching out to you on Instagram and whatnot, and speaking to you about the movie and doing a little bit of research on the film and realizing, like, holy shit, they actually filmed this whole thing in one go. And you have scenes like, obviously I don't want to do any spoilers, but when he reads his daughter's letter, just how do you still maintain that kind of composure and make sure you're still in the moment this far into a movie that you've been filming in one take? This scene where he pulls the phone out of the wall, unbelievable. And you want to talk about funny games, like the just get to the end so we can see what's happening. Like, you in that moment, and I think this is why I love both performances, but I do tend to favor Sarah's performance a little bit more, because in that moment she's encapsulated a whole character in this one little scene where he pulls the phone out, and I'm not really fearing for him. Like, I am fearing for him, but I'm like, what the hell do you do if you're her in this situation? Like,
well, I think you have the advantage of still being able to see him, because the video didn't cut right. Whereas if the video had cut, you might have a different reaction or duality reaction for her. But I think because you can see that nothing's happened yet, that he's okay. But again, listen, Sarah gets the heavy lifting in this role. Like the role, the protagonist is written to, like, she's the one really being put through the ringer. But it's just but her performance doesn't work without David's. You know what I mean? Like, it's really like it's interesting to I haven't watched the film since we wrapped. So since we wrapped everything, I should really go back and watch it. I think the nuances of both of them are just so, and it's also, again, like a play, like anything, like stage actors, I don't think ever get enough credit that they have to make that feel fresh every night that they go out and do it. And you do risk that. I've seen it on movies where, like, certain actors just, you get to take 6, take 7, and it's diminishing returns. It's like sometimes the first take is the best take, or they just, they don't have a way to bring fresh life into it anymore. So, like, I think all films are, if a script is amazing, you're already invested in a movie if you love the story. if the actors communicating that script and making it live and breathe are fantastic and the script's fantastic, that's it. The directing can always be better, the cinematography can always be better, the music, the production design, props, all of that could always be better. But if you have those two things, you've got at least a solid indie film, because that's what it is. It's storytelling, and you have to believe those actors. I just think I honestly didn't expect the cinematography to turn out as good as it did with Last Call. I know that Seth is massively talented. We've worked with him in the past. I just thought by the nature of shooting in a single take and being limited on where we could hide light stands and lights and all this other stuff, I just thought we were going to have this sort of slightly shakier, little more indie feeling thing. But he and our gaffer Doug blew my mind with how rich and textured this film looks. I honestly don't think if you held it up against an indie film that was shot in a more traditional sense of cutting every several seconds or minutes, I think they knocked it out of the park with the look of the film as well.
And of course, you quickly mentioned there, we know even spoke about it, and I believe in my review I referenced it as the third character of the movie is the score, which I think is Adrian Ellis did the score for you.
Adrian Ellis, yes.
What a score that is. And in that final scene that we spoke about earlier, not giving spoilers, but oh yeah, just amazing.
The score was also recorded live. It's a picture.
Yeah, read that.
At a later date. We did a so he watched the movie, wrote the music, and then it started as a kind of a joke when I first. Adrian's one of my closest friends. He's composed everything for me since like late 2012, all my shorts, all my features, and same with the sound designer George Flores. Like Adrian and George are just now part of the language of how I make a movie. Adrian, we were on the phone. I said, we're doing this live movie. And I had this other single take movie I was trying to make a handful of years ago that Adrian was attached to. Never got to make it. And he kind of half joked on the phone, like, oh man, I'm gonna have to do the music live in a single take, or it's just not going to hold up to what you guys are doing. And we laughed about it. But it was the day we wrapped production, I did a local news interview. I think it was for CBC Canada, and they had come into the set, and I'm bleary eyed. Like I haven't slept after shooting the movie all night, and tell us about the movie. It's this and this. We're standing here in Scott's location, this apartment building. Anything else you want to tell us that we didn't capture? I said, yeah, the music will also be done live. And they aired that, and I sent it to Adrian as a news clip. I said, hey, we were on the news. And he goes, oh, cool. And like, suddenly I get a phone call back from him, and he's paraphrasing Bill O'Reilly and his famous famous outtake from the news, like, fuck it, we'll do it live. And he's just kind of like, how are we going to do that? And then like the joke became a reality of like, if you're willing to take the challenge, maybe that's an interesting texture to the story, that like the music is a little bit, there's some spontaneity to it, even if there are like the odd off note here or hearing the turning of the music page. Maybe that just adds to the organic way that we shot the movie. And I think it was the right decision, because I'm thrilled with the music that and again on doing it live, and that we were limited, like the rest of the movie, he was limited to the amount of musicians we could afford to hire to come in and play that day, the amount of takes that we could do. And he just nailed it. Like Adrian, when you talk to him about doing music for your film, you rarely talk in like reference to other movies and things. You talk in emotion. What are the characters going through? What's the emotion? And he finds a way to, this specifically is like Beth sort of has one piece of music, one core sort of theme. Scott has another. And then as the movie goes, those two themes start to weave together, and the movie wouldn't be the same without Adrian's music.
It's a cool ass score. It really is. And I read that you did it live, and I thought that's just even more like tipping the cap and whatnot.
It exists on SoundCloud if you ever want to listen to it solo
nice.
from the movie. It's all there. Yeah.
Nice. So we're gonna start moving towards the end here. I've kind of got a little section that I like to end on. It's just some, not necessarily quick fire questions, but just some random questions to ask towards the end of any interview that I like to do. And the first one, I don't know what you can talk about, but what are you working on next? Have you got anything bubbling away? Is there anything we can get into?
Yeah, I have a film that we shot a big chunk of before the pandemic, and now we're just starting to pick things up again. It's a sci-fi movie about a band on tour across Canada that discover a new color that the world has never seen before. So the movie is shot like a faux documentary. I play
Nice.
myself in the movie. The band plays themselves in the movie. So it's super meta, where we actually went to 18 different cities across Canada. And when this global world-changing event happens, my character, Gavin Booth, the documentary filmmaker, becomes obsessed with documenting how this color is changing society, which, having a pandemic happen in the middle of our shooting schedule, gave us a lot of insight about how
Yeah.
shitty humans are and how shitty humans react to something that we could have all just like banded together and gotten through a year ago.
Yeah.
So I can safely say we're a movie that the pandemic has helped the writing and creative process. So I have that. I have a few shorts out at festivals right now. One a comedy, one a horror, one a sci-fi film that I literally should be wrapping all special effects on today. That'll go to festivals, and then I have a horror feature called Bless His Little Heart. That's again, we're just waiting for like the right time post COVID, which will be any month now. We'll be announcing the start of shooting of that, and I'm partners with a newer streaming platform called Reveal in making that film. And that's it for the year. And then David and I are writing some new projects together that we hope to make happen. Sarah Booth is acting in too many TV shows to name and mention. One of them is so iconic and so amazing that it's going to blow my mind to see it when it releases.
Oh,
yeah,
you can't give a tease like that.
well, you won't have to wait too long. It'll be sooner than later. Yeah.
Cool, awesome. I'll be keeping an eye out. So there is a bit of a running theme with Last Call. I mean, the movie is called Last Call, which kind of alludes to the fact that, you know, this could potentially be somebody's last phone call, but it's also starts in a bar. So you've got the last call at the bar. Scott likes to talk about cocktails all the way through the movie. So what is your favorite cocktail?
Oh man, currently it's just good scotch on the rocks. That has been my go-to. I was a gin and tonic guy for a while. I've never been much of a cocktail guy, but honestly, being friends with David, all that cocktail writing, and the reason Scott likes cocktails is because David is a
Loves them.
cocktail connoisseur. So often, if we were having a writing session or anything, he would come over to my place in LA and bring a little kit of all his bitters and everything that we needed to fully experience whatever we were drinking. So I have a newfound appreciation, but I'm a man of simple tastes. It's usually a good like gin and tonic or just scotch on the rocks.
It is a really cool aspect to the movie as well when he keeps doing that and sort of like deflecting the conversation and talking about cocktails. I love those little moments. They're really cool.
My
But
favorite moment, again, where the split screen works really well, is she convinces him and gets him to agree to stop drinking, and then he takes a sip. But Beth doesn't know that, but the audience is like,
yeah,
fuck. Yeah.
So this one is a really, really hard question to answer, and a lot of people get stuck with this one. So what is your favorite Mel Gibson movie, and why is it Lethal Weapon 2?
that is a very, I mean, I don't know, man. Braveheart.
No, it's Lethal Weapon 2. I'm sorry, but no.
Yeah.
I mean, and you can't mention Braveheart to somebody.
Whatever Leo wants, Leo gets. Yeah.
You can't mention Braveheart to somebody who lives on the English and Scottish borders. Come on.
I know.
Historically accurate as it gets.
Yeah, but it's a good movie.
It's a damn good movie.
I think, God, just that. Well, I mean, Lethal Weapon 2, man. Why did they keep making them? Lethal Weapon 3 is the one with the armor piercing bullets.
Yes.
I remember 4 not being terrible, but I haven't seen it in a long time.
I think a lot of people give 4 a pass on account of Jet Li. I think that's why a lot of people give 4 a pass.
Just that scene where he undoes the gun in like 3 seconds. Yeah.
Pretty bad.
Or I remember a scene where there's like plastic hanging out of the back of a truck and they're on it like going down. It's almost like the end of ET when they've got the tube sticking out of the van. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome.
I haven't watched Lethal Weapon 2 in a long time. I'm gonna do that.
It's a classic, man.
A cheers to Richard Donner, who passed recently.
Oh yeah, man. That's a sad day. I'm not. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not talk about that. What would be your, money is no object. You can make absolutely anything you want. What is your dream project, whether it be an original concept of your own or an existing property that you're getting brought onto?
It would be to direct a Star Wars movie, and more specifically a Boba Fett treatment that I wrote a handful of years ago. Only I think now that the Book of Boba Fett is coming out, where they're gonna run that story into the ground.
Aren't they?
But I think mine would still work. It's I'll tell it to you off recording, but I think it's a pitch that if I had the ear of Kathleen Kennedy, I could probably get greenlit.
Go for it. Go for it. One that Spencer, who runs the Romford Film Festival, he's the founder of that. He always likes to ask this question, so I'm going to throw it at you. You are on a desert island. You've literally got 3 films for the rest of your days. What 3 films you taking with you?
The Shawshank Redemption.
Nice.
Stand By Me. Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
So you're taking King and then Ferris.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
So last thing, do me a favor. Tell our viewers and our listeners and the folks at home and everybody watching this, where can they catch Last Call? When can they catch Last Call? And how can they check out other works of yours?
It's a good question. It's places. We don't always know where. I know in parts of Europe, more Central Europe, it's on HBO currently. Cool. It should be available. It might be available on Amazon in the UK, maybe iTunes in the UK. The real truth is indie filmmakers don't always know where their film is released once they hand off the torch. But I would check the sort of general VOD rental streaming platforms. We are looking at ways to have the film come out in other countries, other platforms in the not so distant future, but I know everyone wants to just sit down, turn on a platform and watch a movie. Indie film just takes a little more digging to find it. And also don't get confused by the fact that there are 2 other movies called Last Call that were released within a month of ours. So you might have to add Last Call Gavin Booth or Last Call Sarah Booth to make sure you found our movie.
It was I went on IMDb to have a little look back at like other projects you'd done and everything, and I saw Last Call there, and I'm thinking that's not the movie I watched.
Please support indie film. It's how we get to make more films in the future.
Absolutely.
No, I think honestly, like indie film and indie music are such a weird thing because I get it. You're marketed that here's the new Dwayne Johnson movie, here's the new Star Wars movie, here's Fast and the Furious, whatever. Indie films don't always permeate into the public conscience. There are so many movies out there that you will love, but you have to go look for them. It's the same as trying to find new music. You've got to go to clubs, you've got to see bands, you've got to search through Spotify and look for recommendations. Google lists of best indie films of the year, hidden gem movies. Like there are just so many movies that if you gave them a chance, you will love them as much as we all love the big studio movies. You just have to go look for them.
Exactly, and that's what we here at Nerdly Out Loud and nerdly.co.uk. That's what we try to push as much as we of course we review the big movies as well. We've got a couple of guys that do that, but for the most part, we like to stick with the indies, try and push the indies a lot more, because 9 times out of 10 the movies are just way more interesting, and to be honest, a good 6 or 7 times out of 10 they're better made, which is kind of why I like to sit there.
You're generally getting people in indie film that are hungrier, that aren't beholden to sort of like the trappings sometimes that happen with studio films of like the formula, the safety nets that need to be put around spending millions of dollars to ensure that it's a hit. You're getting people that are untethered. They have the ability to tell whatever story they want often when they're doing it on a scrappier budget. So you're always going to find things that you just didn't know existed. I've become a couple film festivals that we went to at Last Call that I was just a big fan of the festival experience. I've ended up volunteering as either a programmer or a juror for their festivals, and
Nice.
it's fantastic. These are movies that I absolutely, even though I try to seek out indie film, probably would have never heard of them, especially like from different countries. And I just get to see so many amazing stories and learn about so many filmmakers and actors that I want to collaborate with someday,
Mm.
just by opening myself up to watch. I get it. There's so much content out there, all these massive streaming services, but if you can find it in your hearts, viewers, listeners, give an indie film like Last Call a chance. You might change your life. Yeah.
I think they will. I think they will. And on that, I'm gonna book it out. And thank you so much for coming on, Gavin. This has been absolutely amazing. Finally getting to sit down and chat with you. I've loved this.